Welcome to Skeptiles, the greatest atheist podcast the world has ever known. I'm Joe Dixon, and as always, I'm joined by the lovely and talented Sean Ewald.
Hello.
And the fabulously gifted Leanne Lord.
Hey, you guys.
And tonight we are joined by the comedian, producer, director, film editor, and the main force behind the podcast, The Ardent Atheist and Skeptically Yours, Emery Emery. Hi, Emery.
I'm not wearing pants.
Hello.
That's why I like.
Well, hello there.
I like to picture you without pants, actually.
Well, doesn't everybody really?
Do a search on Google, you'll find it.
Yeah.
Figure your bald head looks like your cock, so it should be perfect.
Wow, we are not 60 seconds into the show. And that's where we are now, boys and girls. Okay.
Welcome to my world, Leanne. Welcome to my world.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, what we, as always, for those who are new to the show, we do a little small talk here, and we talk about what we're drinking, and we do drink on the podcast. I, myself, am having a delicious orange juice, vodka, and apple juice. Leanne, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a hot toddy.
Oh, very nice.
Fancy.
I made it myself, and I don't have my doctor on speed dial, so yeah.
Is it whiskey or rum?
It's with rum.
Oh, good. That's nice.
A real drinker would have both, Leanne. What the fuck is the matter with you?
I'm pacing myself. I got to work. It's only the first fiscal quarter of 2014. Let a girl, work her way up.
All right. I'll let it go for this time. And Sean, I'm sorry, what are you having?
I'm just having a cheap, Rolling Rock, basically. just cheap beer.
Does that even count?
I want to hear Joe say hot toddy.
I can say hot toddy. Hot toddy.
Yeah, I figured it'd be a lot more East Coasty. I'm disappointed.
Well, that's too bad. Now, Emery,
yes,
you are not drinking anything, are you?
Well, I have a water here, but I'm using a substance, so I'm not left out in the cold here. I'm a non-drinker. I don't use alcohol.
Did you learn that from Teller?
Well, it's Penn and Teller are both really teetotalers, but no, I really am not a big fan of the liquor. I mean, I do some drugs. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I'm smoking a hookah, and I've taken Molly and mushrooms in the past couple months. So,
all right, fair enough. You're not like Penn and Teller, actually, who will not even allow people to drink on their property.
Yeah, one of my favorite stories, if you haven't seen it, go look it up on YouTube, is Penn talking about Hitchens coming to his house and standing out on the porch, and Penn trying to explain to him that he has a house rule: no one has ever brought liquor into his home. And if I remember the story right, Hitchens goes, "Well, Penn, I want to respect your religious beliefs." Pretty great.
Can I ask, do you know the answer to this? Why does he feel that way about alcohol?
I do know a little about that. By the way, I should mention that Hitchens did indeed leave that liquor out on the porch.
Oh, my God.
Which is an interesting aspect to it. Penn was raised, and he talks about this, he was raised in an era where everyone around him was medicating with alcohol, was drinking, from his perspective, medicating with alcohol. And I can relate to Penn's perspective because I didn't really touch drugs or anything until I was in my mid to late 20s. And when I was younger, I was like, I have no interest in this crap. So I certainly relate to that perspective. He kept that perspective his whole life, whereas I shed it sometime around 28 years old.
Oh, sticking with drugs, what exactly is Molly? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, Molly is just pure MDMA. It's basically ecstasy, but it's in theory not cut with something.
And this is what gives you a mind-altering experience?
Oh, it's a very euphoric drug. It's a very sensual drug. It's just like ecstasy, but that it's not going to come with some sort of wacky upper mixed into it and stuff like that.
Oh, cool. Sounds nice.
Yeah.
Have you ever done that, Sean?
No, I haven't. The only depressant that I like is alcohol. I also grew up around people who self-medicated with alcohol. I can understand where he's coming from, but I still think he's wrong. Obviously. But usually I'm kind of a stimulant kind of guy. So.
Yeah, well, I am too. I don't like pot. I don't like any of the downer effects.
Yeah.
Molly,
you're not a New Yorker, are you, hon?
No, I'm not.
How's he a Californian?
Yeah, he's a Californian. It's even more pot crazy over there. I mean,
born in Anaheim, raised in Kansas City, and then went back home to California finally, and I'm living in LA now.
So tell me, Emery, you sort of dropped out of the stand-up thing, right, for a little bit, and you usually did a hosting thing. How did that go?
Well, I just recently hosted a show at the House of Blues in the Voodoo Lounge. It went so well that the guy who produces the show asked me if I would be their continual MC. So I'll be hosting that show every Sunday starting in May.
Well, congrats.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm getting back in the swing of comedy. I love it. I just absolutely love it, and I certainly missed it for years. Provenza, guy I made the Aristocrats with, Paul. He said, you have to keep doing comedy. It's the wrong thing for you to not do comedy. And he's right. If you're a comic, you want to always do comedy, in my opinion.
Why did you drop out? Because of the lack of money, or you just found success in other things?
That's exactly it. It's both those. It never really paid. And I never really cracked the L.A. nut. I was more of a road comic. I toured all around the world doing comedy, and they are different animals. The comics that come out of Los Angeles have just a completely different perspective than the road comics, and because of that, I never really got into the scene here at all. Because when I got here, I started working really quickly in editing and producing. And that kept me busy as hell. It finally paid my bills. I was never really paying the bills well as a comic. So that was the reason. Now I'm many years into this industry here in L.A. I understand it quite a bit more, and I think it's time that I get back into it.
I wanted to know, from your perspective, what was the biggest difference in how, I guess, traditional LA comics saw the scene and you didn't? What was that differing aspect? How do they, I guess, play the game differently?
First of all, if you're a road comic, you're really playing to Poughkeepsie, if you will. In other words, you've tailored an act that works everywhere, and by doing that, for me personally, you're really working heavily on performance. You're working heavily on winning those crowds over that are sitting there judging you really harshly. And there isn't a graphic difference between LA comics and road comics that I can tell you. It's really a perspective thing. The Los Angeles scene, I'll tell you a great story. And it's not just Los Angeles that sometimes, air quotes, suffers from this equation. Different regions can have this issue. I was standing at the back of the room at the Punchline up in San Francisco many years ago when a new comic showed up on the scene that everybody had been buzzing about. And he came into the Punchline to do a set for the first time. And the wall is lined with all of these San Francisco guys. And they're all very, very, very judgmental folks in this particular environment that I'm describing. And
judgmental comics? I don't believe.
Yeah, I'm
Roger that, right?
shocked.
So, and you can hear the buzz at the back of the room going, yeah, whatever, I'm sure, fine. It's really negative thing going on, very Comedy Store kind of thing. And does anyone know what I mean when I say that? Because, man, the Comedy Store.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And so I'm standing at the back of the wall. I'm an outsider from this scene, and I'm just observing. And I'm watching these guys just, talk about, just mumble to one another, just derisive things about this guy that's going to hit the stage that's becoming this big thing. And he steps up on the stage, and his opening line was, I just went to a 7-Eleven, and immediately the back of the room, there's just this, oh, fuck, are you kidding me? You've got to be shitting me. 7-Eleven joke out of the fucking, shut up. Are you fuck this guy. That's the sense. It's palpable. It's awful. And he goes, yeah, I just went to a 7-Eleven. I walked up to 7-Eleven, and it was locked. And I said to the guy, I was like, it says you're open 24 hours. And the guy goes, not in a row. There was this gasp of unbelievable significance that fell across the back wall of comics watching this. Just like, holy shit, you've got to be kidding me. That was genius. And of course, everybody knows Stephen Wright, of course, today. But he in matter of seconds, he bait and switched that room and just kicked them all right in the balls. It was beautiful. And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. You know, there's an expectation. There's this in-grouping that goes on in scenes like LA, New York, San Francisco, even Seattle has it to a degree. And that was the thing that I never really cracked. And now I'm very comfortable with it now.
Well, you've jumped over them now. You've made yourself a success, a full editor and film guy, and so now they have to be nicer to you.
They can all lick my balls.
How did you start the Ardent Atheist podcast?
Well, you know, I had been wanting to do an atheist podcast for actually years before I started Ardent Atheist, and I really wasn't quite sure how I was going to go about it. And then I met this fantastic woman through Penn, actually. Heather had been friends with Penn ever since she became a beta tester for their game, their iPhone game, and or Magic app, actually. And she saw me on Penn's Facebook wall. She saw me on Penn's Facebook wall just bashing the hell out of Mother Teresa. And
I'm sorry. That's just funny on its face. That's great.
I know, right? And this really it made her wet, and she decided to reach out. And I was doing something at the time where I was posting. I like to do these 30-day things, so I was posting an awful truth about Mother Teresa every day for 30 days. And she was following that, and finally she reached out to me, and she started chatting with me, and we were flirting with each other. And she lived in Philadelphia at the time, and she said, you know, this flirtation thing was happening, and I'm not a fan of long distance things, and I said, listen, this is all great, but you live in Philadelphia, I live in LA, so we really shouldn't pursue anything. And she goes, I'm moving to LA, and I'm like, ooh, what are you wearing? So so the next thing you know, she does. She moves here a few months later, and once she got here, I realized she was going to be my co-host, and we were going to do a show together, and that's really the story. It was Heather that lit a fire under me to launch this thing.
Cool.
Was there something in the news or story-wise you just wanted to get out there and you wanted to add your voice to, or what exactly happened when she got into L.A. and you decided, we're going to do a podcast? But how did that come about?
Well, I had been wanting to do a podcast about atheism for a long time. My motivation was I just didn't feel like there was much voice out there at all, either in the mainstream news or in the podcast realm. And so I knew that I wanted to bring comics together and talk about this. And the reason I knew that would work, and the reason I thought that it made most sense, is because when you talk about any of the hard to talk about things, abortion, religion, politics, when you talk about those things that everybody likes to get offended over and not really have honest discussions about, there's a different element when comics do it. When we sit in a green room, comics, and we talk about these hard to broach ideas, we're not offended with one another. Offense is something that we, generally speaking, completely throw out of our psyche. Becoming a comic means, to a certain degree, that you need to figure out how to offend. And so because of that equation, I knew that this discussion would be vastly different if it happened between comedians. So that was an idea I came up with, like I say, years before I met Heather. And then once she was out here, and she was as ardent an atheist as I am, and as outspoken an atheist, and had as many or more arguments online with just utter nonsensical retards, I realized that we needed to launch this thing. So it wasn't Heather that made me think to do it. It was the equation of talking about these things with comics. I would sit in green rooms and I'd talk with comics I love and will always love, regardless of what they think and believe. Rick Overton. We don't agree really on just about anything, but goddamn, I love that guy. And that comes across when you put two comics at a microphone and have them argue over these kinds of things.
Well, Rick tends to be in the woo factor, as near as I can tell from some of the stuff he's posted.
Does he really?
Yeah, he is.
Rick Overton, yeah, a little bit. Yeah, he's got.
But he's so smart.
He's really smart. Let me tell you, one of the things that's happening recently that I'm watching Rick on stage do, this whole conspiracy mindset is growing more and more significant with Rick. And this is really, in my opinion, very telling of the general mindset of the populace. Rick, for years, in this brilliant way, would talk about things and come across as this dramatically wisdom-filled man. You know what I'm talking about, Leanne?
Yes, of course.
Well, as of late, what he's been evolving into is less loaded with wisdom and more loaded with conspiracy. And audiences are sensing this in Rick. And so some of his bits just aren't hitting like they used to, and that's the reason. And it bums me out a lot, and I love the man, and I'll never not watch the man work because he's just a genius no matter how you slice it as a comic. But his ideas, they're not well thought out and anymore. When he starts getting into politics, when he starts getting into 9/11, all of these kinds of things, he's really fallen hard for this conspiracy mindset.
I was actually going to friend him on Facebook, and then, because I like his comedy, and I think I did see something about him, like with 9/11 conspiracy theories, and I said, that's a shame,
Yeah.
I just decided not to friend him on Facebook. So,
I'm sure he'll survive.
I know. I'm sure. Yeah, I know.
Well, we don't know that. He could be hurting. You never know.
He's taken to throwing people off his Facebook page that don't agree with those ideas.
Ah, man, really?
Yeah, and not angrily.
Oh, that's the straw.
He quietly dismisses people when they strongly disagree with his perspective.
Wow. You know what? I don't have a problem with disagreeing because I had some stuff happen on my wall this week, and I have no problem. We don't have to agree. We do have to be respectful. If I've posted it on my page, it's my page. You kind of don't have to read it.
Right.
But if you want to engage, let's engage. Hell, I don't have a job. This is what I do. But you bring up a interesting point, I think, about him and his development. If you're an artist, you're always working and developing, and you assume that it's always into something better. Sometimes it's not.
I would offer Gallagher as an example of how it's not.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have even put them in the same paragraph, but okay.
Well, I really think that he was awful. He was awful to people his whole career, Gallagher. A really awful human being. But as in terms of his comedy, I don't know if you've seen it in the last couple of years. But
no, I have not.
He's turned into this right-wing psychotic, and it's really awful, genuinely awful.
Yeah. He was always a joke. He's kind of like, Carrot Top in a way. He was like Carrot Top before Carrot Top existed in a way, in terms of like being a kind of a comedian that he could play to big crowds because people are idiots, but like other comedians would kind of look at his stuff and with a bit of a distaste, And but actually, I was, there's an amazing interview that Mark Maron did with Gallagher. I think he stormed out. He stormed out of the interview.
He did. I'll tell you what. My favorite interview, I heard that one and I thought it was amazing. My favorite interview with him, though, is on Probably Science, Matt Kirshen's show. You need to check out his visit, Gallagher's visit with those guys. It is bizarre. Just bizarre. He's just really, really nasty. It's really funny. And he's so guarded, and it's really awful.
What's amazing, what I found amazing about the Mark Maron interview is that he's so full of himself, that he thinks that he invented, comedy or something. It was just the arrogance of the guy was astonishing.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm not sure who you're talking about. We're talking about the smashing watermelon guy, right?
Yes, that's right.
No, I just want to make sure that I'm clear.
That's right.
Okay, right.
Gallagher, in my opinion, I'm going to differ with you on this. I thought he was fine as a performer, as an entertainer. I thought Gallagher was excellent. I thought that what's his name? Howie Mandel took a lot of shit because he was a performing comic, and people picked on him because he did performance more than substance. And I think that they're the same, and the same is true in my opinion for Carrot Top. I've never really been on board with the whole hatred of those guys at all.
Yeah.
Certainly I've never understood the hatred of character. I understand it's not to everyone's taste, but overall he seems like fundamentally seems a nice enough guy, and look, I don't want everybody to be Bill Hicks. I appreciate different types of comedy. I don't want the same. I don't want everybody to sound exactly the same and have the same sort of bits and have the same sort of point of view. It's not interesting to me.
I haven't seen his act in a long time, but I remember back in the 90s, like when I think he was getting started, it just seemed, I could think the problem with him was that he just let his props they were the joke. He didn't really have an act beyond the props.
Why would that be a problem? Why would that even be a problem? I don't understand that distinction, and I've never connected with it. I've always said on the road when comics would talk shit about Carrot Top, he was the big punchline. And don't get me wrong, I think one of the funniest jokes in the world is Carrot Top showed up at a gig and they lost his luggage. So and insert punchline here.
Right.
It's funny, don't get me wrong, but I don't deride the man. I think he's really funny and talented. I think taking Joel Hodgson is one of the comics. If you're unaware of him and you're listening, go find Joel Hodgson. He
of Mystery Science 3000.
Yes, but prior to that, he was a prop performer and a very sensitive cat. There's this wonderful Hollywood story about him, or maybe it's a road story, about Joel Hodgson meeting one of his heroes, Gallagher, and he went backstage to meet Gallagher, I think in Minnesota where he lived at the time, and he extended his hand to Gallagher to meet him and said, "Hi, Mr. Gallagher, my name is Joel, and I'm also a prop performer." And Gallagher, in classic Gallagher style, looked at him, didn't shake his hand, left it hanging there, and said, "I'm not a goddamn prop performer," and walked away from him. And that precipitated, awful.
Yeah.
That precipitated a dropout from performance by Joel Hodgson for a number of years. He was really disenfranchised from the business, and that was kind of a nail in the coffin of his performing. And then he showed back up. I was very pleased to see. I was on the tour with Craig Anton at the time, doing a college run for a couple of years with him. And we were passing through town. He knew Joel. We went to see him. And he's an inventor. He invents props, larger than life props, and does bits with them. And I think that form of art is fantastic, and I hate that it's been relegated to the same shelf as shitty mimes, but because I don't agree with that.
There's a snobbery that happens between what's considered pure monology. You're just doing it with your mind, and props are seen as a crutch, as opposed to sort of big tenting the idea. If you spend any time with these folks, that what they're doing isn't all that easy. I can't get on stage and just make it happen with a napkin and a spoon. That's
right.
Not how my mind works. I got to work with the legendary Wid, and it was, when the audiences got him, it was just, oh my word, how was he doing that? And when they didn't, it was awful. But that's no different than any of us. When you get on stage, sometimes you click, sometimes you don't. And it's like, if that's where your talent takes you and you're good at it, who cares?
Yeah,
the time you take to judge, you're not writing a joke or doing whatever it is that's your thing.
That's exactly right.
My only disagreement with this is I don't have a problem with prop comics or any kind of comic. I think some bits, I was never a big fan of Howie Mandel, but some of his stuff was funny. I mean, in his early days, it was, I was a kid when I first saw Gallagher. Yeah, it was stupid humor. He smashes a watermelon with a fucking sledgehammer. It was kind of funny, when you're 12 years old. But when you're 12. Yeah. I don't have a problem with that. But I guess my issue is like somebody who just makes the props their act, as opposed, a comic who actually writes their jokes, and like comes up with a bit or whatever, or even like a story, or if it's just the props themselves are the joke.
I think you need to make the distinction. You know what? There are bad prop comics, the same way there are bad pure stand-up comics or monologists. I don't mean to say pure in terms of in a disparaging way that the other ones aren't funny, but I've had a bad taste in my mouth for decades because my first improv show that I saw was horrible. You couldn't pay me to go to an improv show because that's how terrible it was. I spent years judging improv based on that bad show, and I think that's what can happen if you see a bad stand-up show or you see a bad prop comic. You're sort of damaged, and your eye starts to twitch when you think of it.
I know. Well, yeah, and obviously, yeah, improv does have that's an entirely separate thing, which does have definitely has a stigma. And then there are bad improv people, and then there are people like Greg Proops, for example, who is like kind of a combination of a stand-up comic and an improviser, where he like every week he's got a show, like a 2-hour show, where he like literally pulls 2 hours out of his ass, which is amazing. It's like there's that level of improv, and then there's shitty improv, but
right.
Emery, moving on to or staying with the topic of judgmental and people looking down on others, what do you think of the atheist movement these days?
There's no judgment in the atheist movement. What's wrong with you?
That's because there is no atheist movement.
Right.
Yeah. I think that the atheist movement is doing quite well. I do. And I like the fact that there are people deriding religious belief. I think it's important. I think it's good that there are people who are speaking just on behalf of science who are non-believers. We have our Neil deGrasse Tysons who really don't grab the reins of atheism and start riding on that white horse. But then you have your Dawkins, the Hitchens we had, Sam Harris. I think that they're all doing really important work in their own right, and I don't think that there's any wrong or right way to be an atheist. I think it's. I would just say to the public abroad, please, if you're an atheist, just at least be counted. That's all that matters in the grand scheme if you're an individual. But yeah, no, I love what's happening in the atheist world. I like the infights. I like.
Well, there are plenty of them, so you should be having a great time.
There are many. I have no problems with what I'm seeing. When a movement or when an idea hits a particular critical mass, one of the things that happens is it starts suffering from the same things that broader society suffers from, like the feminist issues and those sorts of things. They start making their way into your community. It's a sign that you're getting bigger, and that's, in my opinion, great. I bring it on.
Yeah.
Well, you say that, but then there is a certain person whose name you refuse to say anymore. I mean, so that doesn't sound like fun to me.
Obviously, he's not going to say it, but Joe, could you tell me what person's name he's refusing to say?
Is it Voldemort? He who has
I
not been named?
refuse to talk about Voldemort. That son of a bitch. No, I feel like when you reach a certain level, you're only helping someone's bad arguments by talking about them. And yes. I spent a lot of time talking about the feminist issue on our show and as a public figure, and I just don't do it anymore because I just don't think any good is going to come from me engaging these folks who aren't using critical thought and who aren't using data and evidence to support their claims. So yeah, I'm done taking part in that discussion with people publicly.
Which reminds me, now you also have, of course, what is the name of your other podcast? I'm sorry, Skeptically
Yours.
Yes. And so how did that come about? Was that like a spinoff of the Ardent Atheist, or what? Why did you open that one as opposed to just keeping it with the atheism?
Well, I started Skeptically Yours because I didn't feel like Ardent Atheist was taking up enough of my valuable time.
It did seem like you were slacking.
I started it because I think that there is a real value in separating the discussions that we need to have, separating the atheist discussions from the skeptic discussions. I do think that there's a value in that. I agree with Jamie Ian Swiss when it comes to that. And I have a lot to say about skepticism. I really do want to have conversations about bad thinking, about non-critical solutions to really complex problems. I really have a lot to say about that, and that's why I started Skeptically Yours. I also thought that it made sense to bring comics into this discussion, another thing we're not seeing very often.
You realize you're combating, the entire education system, under, the college level in the entire country. They don't teach critical thinking. They don't even teach the toolbox, Carl Sagan's toolbox at all. So it's almost like the entire country should get handicap parking if we counted for the lack of critical thinking skills that we're taught. Because unless you go out and get them on your own, or you're the weirdo in college that wants to have it, you're kind of locked out. And then you don't even see it being practiced. I mean, I turn on Sunday TV. I used to be under the delusion. I'll find out what's going on because people who are more informed will have a discussion. And you get soundbite, commercial, and then on to a different topic. So if that's your main source of information, you're screwed there as well.
Well, I think that the way to get real good information is, first of all, understand what critical thought is and start employing it. And obviously, I presume most of your listeners already have and do. It's Penn that I think it was Penn who said, I like hearing news from people like Fox because I know their perspective. I know when they're not being honest or accurate, and I like being able to listen to biased opinions. Now, when I was younger and traveling the country, I used to listen to Dr. Laura and Rush Limbaugh in my car for hours at a time, not because I agreed with them, but because I disagreed with them. And if I could understand what their arguments were, I could make good, strong arguments that made sense, that were well thought out against those bad ideas. I think we need to listen to all of that information. Don't get me wrong, I don't watch Fox News. I certainly consume some of Fox News's content on the internet, but I don't watch Fox News. When I consume that content, though, it helps me to understand that perspective so that I can speak intelligently up to it and against it.
Emery, you sound so much like my dad. When I was a kid, I used to drive to work in school with him in the morning, and I can't remember the name of the guy. I think it was Bob Grant, who, when I got old enough to understand what he was saying,
oh my God, what an asshole that guy was. Holy fuck.
Horrible things. And I remember looking at my dad and like, Daddy, why are you listening to this? And he said, it's because you should understand that not everybody thinks the way you do. You need to remember that.
Yeah, that's
which was one of the most. Yeah, this is one of the most. I mean, I grew up debating with my dad. You know, he would take a side, I'd take a side, we'd debate, and then when I agreed with him, he'd switch, and we'd do it again. So, I mean, that's just this is how my dad would think, and it was one of the most valuable lessons that I ever got. So I don't have a problem disagreeing with people. That's probably why. And while I'll listen to the other side, because I want to know, what are you thinking? What's going on in there? Not because I want to argue, but because I want to talk.
Well, I'll tell you, Leanne, you do not sound your age. I did not realize your dad was Socrates.
Oh, go on.
Well, I mean, I have to say, Bob Grant was a piece of shit. I mean, he was the worst. I mean, I mean, your dad. I hope
you just
so.
made me picture a pile of shit taking a dump.
Right. That's and there's there, and then now you have a mental image of Bob Grant. So.
Listen to Rush Limbaugh too, and he would always get me because for the first 5 minutes of him talking, it made sense. Like, yeah, okay, and then minute 6, it was like craziness. I'm like, he got me again.
Yeah, he's the best at that.
I understand people's motivation to want to understand how other people think, but I think that the best, at least for me anyway, I'm just not going to speak for anybody else. I'm not going to say this is how everybody should think, but I feel like I prefer to find out what is actually factually correct and use logic and reason to my best ability to destroy people who are wrong, and
well, these are not mutually exclusive things.
Right.
Well, no, they're not mutually exclusive, but I really can't. I just can't fucking listen to like what's his name, Hannity. I couldn't fucking watch his show. I just couldn't do it. It's not worth it. You're not going to learn anything. I mean, it's better to talk to people who listen to Hannity and find out why they like him and why they agree with him than to actually listen to Hannity. That's my.
Well, when I listen to Hannity, I do it with no clothes on, and then I just I'm all greased up, and every time he makes a misstatement or a dishonest declaration, I stroke. I usually come in about 3 minutes.
Well, thanks for that. Now, speaking of terrible mental pictures,
well, since we were talking about you stroking it, you are one of the few people I've ever heard who believes that you can. I don't know if the word's change your sexuality, but you do think that one can learn to be bisexual. Am I correct in that?
That's a misrepresentation of the idea. The idea is this. Sexuality, in my opinion, is a broad spectrum. It's not a straight, gay, bi thing. I think that sexuality is a lot more fluid, and that option is available to us. I know that there was a point in time when the idea of being sexual with a man was abhorrent to me. I now understand that it was abhorrent to me because my society beat into me that it was abhorrent. And I eventually understood that sexuality between two men is not something that is abhorrent to me. I eventually evolved into someone, if I can misapply that phrase, I eventually changed into someone who understood that the option of being sexual with men is there. It's something that I could explore. And there's no religion to stop me from doing that, and society can suck my balls. So I realized that that was an option, and then I started exploring that possibility and discovered that bisexuality is something that I'm open to and enjoy. And so, in my opinion and through my experience, I've discovered that sexuality can indeed be a choice. How you express sexually, how you present yourself sexually to others is something that you can choose to change and alter. Now, I've been completely taken out of context here, and by many of my gay listeners and friends who misunderstand the point. I'm not saying that gay people can be changed into straight people. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there are people on this planet who can choose to live as a homosexual, or to choose to live as a bisexual, or can choose to live as a heterosexual, and that opportunity should also be spoken. We should say that to people so that they're not locked into some sort of binary or tertiary options.
Well, I guess my question about this would be, if a person is capable of living as a bisexual or living as a gay person or whatever, then aren't they actually that thing? That maybe they hadn't expressed their bisexuality previously, but there was always that potential there. That they have always been bisexual. It's not necessarily a choice. I'm willing to.
I think you might be hitting on me, Sean. Where are you going with it?
I mean, I'm willing to
around the bush with it.
I'm willing to
out with it, man.
Well, no, I'm willing to entertain the idea that that maybe I'm just not open-minded enough. But I feel like if you are capable of being bisexual, then aren't you bisexual?
No. I mean, let me tell you what's happening here. I want to be very clear. I'm saying that there are some individuals like me. That's all I'm saying. There are some individuals who are born into a male body and are not male. Their psyche isn't male. They are transsexuals. They need to get their body to match their psyche.
Absolutely. I don't disagree with that, yeah.
That's not you, is it, Sean?
No. Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying here? There are people out there. You might not be like me, Sean. That's what I'm saying. You may be a flat-out gay or a flat-out heterosexual guy. I don't know you. I'm looking at the picture. I'm going to lean toward gay. And and I'm just saying that whatever your sexuality is, do it. Be it. Yeah. Choose it. And choose it is the key phrase. Now, I'm not trying to suggest that we should be putting people in camps and trying to convert them from X to Y. That's not what I'm saying at all. That's not even remotely in my message. My message is, it's, for some, absolutely a choice. We can choose to live however we want, express however we want. It is a choice. Now, I don't know if that's because I'm wired to be bisexual and I discovered it. I honestly don't know the answer to that. I'm just saying that for some of us, some individuals out there, they have this as a choice sitting right in front of them.
I don't want to make assumptions about bisexual people, but it seems to me just, I mean, obviously this is clearly speculation, but that if you are bisexual and you can have sexual gratification and, by having sex with either gender, that it is possible to choose, it's more possible to have a choice if you're bisexual than if you're not.
I think that's probably accurate. Yeah. I really do. In no way am I trying to shoehorn all sexual beings into my model. I just know that that's my model.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
Okay, one other quick question.
Well, before we move on away from that, let me add this to this discussion. I also add to this particular discussion always this. When we argue with those who would choose to oppress homosexuals through the law, we should never use this argument. This shouldn't be part of the discussion. We shouldn't allow them to lower us to this kind of quagmire in the discussion. The discussion should rest on one question and one question only. Ask every Republican who's opposed to gay marriage this question, and you will expose them for the bigot that they are. Are we not free, sir? Are we not free?
Yeah.
You don't have the right to oppress others based on your biblical or personal opinions. I don't have the right to pass legislation that demands that everybody be bisexual. I would never even presume that I have that right.
Right.
And for the far right to do that is absolutely bigoted.
Right.
What you're saying by saying something like that is basically, let's say that the right wing was right, that people were choosing to be gay. Just decided to wake up one morning and say, yeah, I'm going to be gay. Who cares? It has nothing to do with the fact that we're free. So what? Even if the person made that choice, who cares? The state has no right to stop these people from living their lives.
I live in the land of the free. I will choose my sexuality, and you will have nothing to say about it, Senator. You will have nothing to say about it, Mr. President. You will have nothing to say about it, Mr. Congressman and Mrs. Congressman. You have nothing to say about what I do with my cock.
Yes, exactly. In America, of all places, of whatever you're doing doesn't hurt anybody else, and whoever you're doing it with is a consenting adult, then it's nobody's fucking business, period, end of fucking story.
Bingo.
But you guys are missing the point entirely, because they're going to say that it's hurting Jesus.
It's making Jesus cry.
Yes. They're going to say that you're breaking God's law, and this is somehow giving them the authority to act on God's behalf, as if they've been drafted. They're God's attorney. And this is the quote-unquote moral authority they think that is all they need to tell you what you can do with your member.
And that's just too fucking bad, because we live in a...
Oh, I agree.
No. I mean, we live in a country with a separation of church and state, whether they like it or not.
No, we don't. No. There's no separate church and state. What do you mean?
What are you talking about? Of course there's a separation of church and state.
I'm joking, but I'm saying...
I know. I know.
There is no separation of church and state. They never. That's not in the Constitution. They never said that. All the framers of the Constitution were Christian, and they believed that this was a Christian country.
It's not true. All the framers of the Constitution were not Christian. In fact, there were more deists framing the Constitution than there were Christians. So that's an inaccurate statement. I also want to say this. I think the guy who puts it best, where this is concerned, is Peter Boghossian. If you don't know who Peter Boghossian is, go search for him. There's an H in that name somewhere. Good luck. Peter Boghossian says, these are people, we're talking about the right, for example, these are people who are pretending to know things they can't know. You can't know whether or not Jesus cares if I'm masturbating or having sex with a man. You can't know that. And the only, air quotes, evidence that you can offer is a book written by idiots 2,000 years ago, well, 5,000 years ago, really. How long ago? It's 4,000, I guess. These ideas and ideals are all based on scriptures, air quotes, that are written by nomadic retards. So it's not evidence. And so these people can't know what God thinks, wants, or needs. They're claiming to know something they can't know. Peter Boghossian, look him up. I
saw a video of you talking about how it's okay to teach atheism. And I'm just curious, why is that not dogmatism to you? Why is that not dogmatic? Shouldn't we allow the kids to just make up their own mind?
What video are you talking about?
There was a video. Oh God, I think it's
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, you're talking about when I was responding to someone who had children and is an atheist, and they were worried about telling their children that there's no God. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Well, because I want to make sure that we're talking about the same thing, and I think you might have kind of misinterpreted my position on this. Here's my take on this. I think that we keep getting to Penn. I know Penn really well, and I've got a lot of examples that he offers, both in his book and personally. But he's got a...
Penn just commented on it.
Oh, did Penn just comment? Heather's sitting next to me, and Penn just commented on her Facebook. Penn has 2 kids, and he's teaching those kids that the atheist way of thinking is the most sound way of thinking. I don't find any problem with that at all. And if you believe in your heart of hearts, down in the deepest recesses of your being, that God will smite you, you have to teach your kids that. You don't have a choice if you believe that. So, no, I don't think it's a problem teaching your children those things. I also think that the atheists of the world are not only teaching their children that, they're also teaching their children, as will Penn and his wife, they're teaching their children that there are these other belief systems out there. They're not shielding them away. There's the difference between the religious perspective in how they raise their children and the atheist perspective in how they raise their children. We're not afraid of teaching them these other perspectives.
Yeah.
So they are getting the opportunity to make that decision.
I have a son, 4-year-old, and my feeling is I'm not going to teach him about atheism, but I'm not going to teach. I think kids are people are naturally atheists. I don't think people need or seek out a God. I mean, if the question of religion comes up, that he sees a nun or something, or has a friend who comes from a religious family, I'm going to talk to him about it. I'm going to be honest with him about it. But I don't feel that atheism, not believing in God, requires teaching. But I think things like, being able to argue rationally and have a grounding in reality. I think that atheism kind of comes naturally if you raise the kid in a secular way, that where religion doesn't really play any big role in their life. They may encounter, because religion exists and people believe in religion, they're going to encounter people who also are believers, and you'll have to address that. But I don't feel like I have to specifically teach my kid to be an atheist.
Well, Sean, I want to mention how impressed I am that you figured out how to work your son into this discussion because I called you gay. I didn't mean to make you feel that insecurity. But Joe,
he works his kid into every conversation.
I could. You don't know. I could be gay married and have a son with a guy. You don't know.
Listen, I'm making a comedic assumption, and that, my friend, is what we do as comics. Now, Joe, you mentioned, isn't it just as dogmatic? And I want to respond to that. I don't think it is. When you look into what dogma is, atheist is teaching their child that they're going to suffer for eternity unless they choose atheism. That's where dogma comes in the religious perspective. We don't have dogma in the same way in the atheist perspective. The atheist perspective is simply a perspective without theism. And no one is threatening children with anything if they don't choose atheism. So there is no dogma, in my opinion.
Okay.
Although, I would disown my kid if my kid decided to turn Catholic after all my hard work to dissuade them to the contrary.
Would you really?
Yes.
I look forward to your child growing up. I want to have another conversation with you.
Actually, I think that's actually the best way. That's the best way to make a little atheist is to send them to Catholic school. I mean, that's what worked for me.
Oh, I agree. As a former Catholic, I agree. Yes, a Catholic school. I think actually Penn Jillette has a joke about that too. I think on one of his podcasts he mentioned that he had a friend who is an atheist who sent his kid to Catholic school because it's so effective at making kids atheists.
Fantastic, yeah. Hitchens sent his children or child, I don't know if he has more than one, to a Quaker school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my mom called me, and she was like, oh, my God, what's going on? Why has Hitchens done this? And, when you're raising children, there are some tough decisions that you have to make, and I think he probably made the best decision. It's a private school, and they respect other beliefs, the Quakers. So it wasn't a problem for him.
He would lived in D.C., right? And I think he might have sent his kid. He has the money. He could send him. It's like Sidwell Friends or something, which is where Obama's kids go, which is I thought a Quaker school. So it's also a very good school, very good, expensive school. So I think that might have been another motivating factor for him to send him there. But
a lot of good connections, yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, just so it's clear, my dogma question was just me playing devil's advocate, so I wasn't advocating anything.
Skeptiles is a weekly podcast on atheism, skepticism, politics, comedy, and drinking, featuring Joe Dixon, Sean Ewald, and Leanne Lord. Please subscribe to us on iTunes or Stitcher, or download our shows directly from our website at skeptiles.com. When you subscribe, leave us a review on iTunes or give us a thumbs up on Stitcher. You can also leave a comment on our website, skeptiles.com, or email us at info@skeptiles.com. Finally, you can leave a message on our listener voicemail at 347-443-9253, or go to skeptiles.com and click the Call Me button on the website. Joe Dixon's stand-up clips and his Atheist Bible Study series can be found on his YouTube channel. Joe spells his last name Dixon. Leanne Lord's stand-up and her other podcasts can be found at her website, veryfunnylady.com. That's veryfunnylady, one word, .com. Our show's opening music is the song Insanity by Oingo Boingo. Our show's closing music is the song Is That All There Is by Peggy Lee. Arrested Development's opening and quiz music mashups by Scooter. Thanks for listening and supporting the show.
Daylight come and me one go home.
Arrested Developments, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, on this first story, all I'll say is get ready to drink. For Emery, he probably doesn't know, when someone says youth minister or shocked or shocking or any variation of that, the listeners at home drink.
Cool. Well, I'll take a hit off my hookah.
All right.
Well, a youth minister in Oakdale is now
Drink.
facing charges for possession of child porn. KCRA 3's Mallory Hopp shows us what investigators found today after searching his church and the house where he lives.
27-year-old Tyler Bliss is charged with possession of child pornography. Police say he is the youth minister at Bethel
Drink.
Assembly of God Church in Oakdale. Church offices were closed this evening. You recognize him?
Yeah, I've seen him. Of course, yeah.
People who live in the community are reacting.
Sad, because come on, you're supposed to trust the ministry. I'm a God-loving person, fearing person, and if you can't trust the man of God, who is going to trust?
The Ceres Police High-Tech Crimes Task Force followed up on a tip that led them to serve search warrants here at the church and at a nearby home where Bliss lives with family. When we visited that home, no one came to the door. Computers and other electronic devices were seized by police. Investigators say they found child pornography.
Images depicting children in sexual acts, images of children who appear to be under the age of 13.
Bliss was booked at the Stanislaus County Jail. Was he involved in creating these images, or were they solely in his possession?
We do not know at this time. We're currently investigating that to determine the source of the images.
They are also working to find out the identity of the young victims. In Oakdale, Mallory Hoff, case.
So that is a nice story, isn't it? The youth minister, man of God, some child porn. But I mean, the man needs a release, right?
I like how the girl that they interviewed sounds like she's 13.
Yeah, I know.
I think my favorite part was the person saying, if you can't trust a man of God, who can you trust? You almost want to go, really, Skip? Where have you been?
Right, I know. If you listen to our show, you'd know. Yeah, man of God is exactly the last person you can trust.
If you listen to our show, if you pick up a newspaper.
I know, for fuck's sake. I know, seriously. Just Google like priest arrest or pastor arrest. You'll never run out of stories. You could do it every day and never run out of stories.
You know, I didn't drink before I did this podcast. I want you to know. And now I drink very heavily because of it.
You know, if you guys did a podcast that wasn't through Skype, if you did a podcast where we were all in the same room and we're drinking like this to these stories, somebody might get laid.
Well, especially you. You're open to everything.
Emery, Sean, you know?
You'll fuck anybody. So. Although, no, never mind. I was gonna say something. I was gonna say something pretty inappropriate. So.
Yeah. Why start now?
Okay. Yeah. I know we're talking about a story about a guy, a child porn possessing priest. You know.
I think we've already breached the shitting imagery.
All right, let's move on to our next story. Once again, get ready to drink, folks.
A former pastor is charged with sexually assaulting a teenage girl. That girl says it happened years ago and is just now coming forward after learning where the pastor works. Drew Caritas is live in the Museum District with details. Drew?
Well, Lisa, the alleged victim, now 18 years old, decided to speak out after learning that this woman was working right here at the Children's Museum. The teen says she did so because she didn't want any more children being taken advantage of.
Then why are you going after a kid?
One of the many puzzling questions directed at a 28-year-old former employee of Houston's Children's Museum and an ex-youth pastor at St. Mark's United Methodist Church in the Heights area.
You can't trust people. Everyone's got their own agenda. And you can't trust someone just because they're a youth minister.
You got it!
Down from Melanie Scarlett Lewis in Baytown, an apartment where police say Lewis began engaging in a sexual relationship with a 15-year-old girl she met at church.
What goes on behind closed doors stays there.
In this case, it didn't. The girl's family began to notice. Investigators say at one point, Lewis and the girl were caught in the act. Lewis was fired as youth minister, but back then, the girl denied everything.
Why didn't the girl say something about it sooner? I just find it hard to believe.
Lewis's grandmother is standing behind her. She spoke out by telephone from her home near Waco.
You don't know her. I know her, and I know the kind of girl she is, and I've never seen anything to even think it would be like that.
Police say Lewis kept in touch with the girl for years, but once she turned 18, the girl changed her mind. And after learning that Lewis had regular access to kids at her job at the Children's Museum, she decided it was time to blow the whistle. And I'm told Lewis has a 6-year-old daughter and is legally married but actually lives separately from her husband. Meantime, the Children's Museum says Lewis was let go this week for not showing up to work. Apparently, the museum did not know that she had been arrested. Reporting live in the Museum District, Drew Caritas, KHOU 11 News.
I love that grandmother. She wouldn't do a thing like that. Yeah, because you usually tell your grandmother about how you're fucking young kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's the first person you let know. But hey, grandma, you know, I can't come by and visit you. I'm busy fucking this 16-year-old. That's cool, right?
Right.
I know my granddaughter, and I know that she wouldn't do the kinds of things that I've discovered that she was doing.
The only thing unique about the story is that usually these stories with youth ministers or youth pastors are like a guy fucking young girls or fucking young boys. So it's a woman in this case fucking young girls. So that's a little light.
We like to be equality on this show. It's nice that we brought in the women. You know, it's kind of sexist for us to just.
It's interesting when you think about it, because if she was fucking boys, isn't it bizarre how we don't think of that so much as rape as we do when a man is fucking young girls?
Oh, Sean does. Yeah. I'm one of those bad people who don't think it's that bad.
I do. I well, yeah, we had a discussion about that on a previous show a couple months back, and I mean, I think, like I said, when I was a kid, there were teachers like that I thought were really hot, and I would have not complained. I thought it would be awesome if they wanted to fuck me, but it would still be rape. It would still, because I wouldn't be old enough to consent. Even if I thought it was awesome, even if I approved of it, even if I was like, wanting to brag about it to all my friends, it would still be statutory rape. That's why the category of statutory rape exists, because I'm a kid. I would be a kid who doesn't have the capacity to consent to sexual activity.
Exactly. Did anybody miss that this woman got fired for not showing up to work? Not because of what she did.
Right.
I mean, nobody ever calls in and said, "Hey, I'm in jail."
Right.
Can you get a jail day? And if you get one phone call, you're not going to call work.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not coming in. I've been arrested.
No one ever calls in scissoring.
I got a scissoring injury. I pulled a muscle scissoring.
Okay, let's move on. The next story. Now, ask yourself, ladies and gentlemen, if you were responsible for the death of 2 children, how many years do you think you would get? Well, now imagine if you killed those kids but cloaked your actions in religion. Yes, it's that time again for the wacky visit of the Scheibel family.
Judgment Day for a couple accused of depriving their dying son medical treatment in favor of faith. Today, Herbert and Catherine Scheibel were sentenced to at least 3.5 years in prison for the death of their infant son last spring. A death and a sentence that infuriated the prosecutor. Action News reporter Vernon Odom live now in Center City with the details on this day in court. Hi, Vernon.
Hello, Brian. This couple that twice chose prayer over medical science is headed for prison tonight for a serious stretch. 2 of their children died as a result of their stunning failure to act. For the Scheibels, 3.5 to 7 years in state prison. This comes after a second child of theirs, only 8 months old, died from bacterial pneumonia last year when they once again chose faith-healing prayer over medicine. They were on probation already for letting a 2-year-old die without seeking medical care back in 2009. The prosecutor then and now had warned the judge there would be a tragic recurrence if all they got was probation.
They still don't get it. They promised the judge that this would never happen again. They promised the same thing to Judge Temin, but yet here we stand. 2 of their children are now dead. Herbert and Catherine
Scheibel pleaded guilty to third-degree murder in November. Both are third-generation members of a Pentecostal community in Northeast Philadelphia called the First Century Gospel Church. As he passed sentence, Judge Benjamin Lerner told them, quote, "You've killed 2 of your children, not God, not your church, not religious devotion, you." As the sentences came down, both parents told the judge they were beginning to see the light. Catherine Scheibel, quote, "I'm sorry. This is the most horrible thing I've ever been through. I have now changed my beliefs."
These people are threats only to their children, and if that's the case, then why do we don't need to fear as a community or a society if they're amongst us.
And he's very remorseful, very sorry for what happened, and said it wouldn't happen again.
The couple has 6 surviving minor children living with foster parents. The oldest, Herbert Jr., age 17, left court without comment. The prosecution had asked for sentences of 8 to 16 years behind bars for each parent.
This is a stiff sentence. These are people that have never really been in jail, but every day of that sentence was earned for the killing, as the judge said, of their 2 children.
After their release in 3.5 to 7 years, this couple will remain on probation for 2.5 years. Their access to the surviving children still to be determined. Live at the Criminal Justice Center in Center City, Vernon Odom, Channel 6.
It's so nice that it took the death of 2 of their children to go like, oh, maybe we should change our beliefs.
Right.
It's like, the first kid died. Yeah, I'm going to stick with this. Oh, the second one died. You know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe this is the wrong way to go about it.
It wasn't even that. It was when the sentence came down that they were actually going to jail for murder, to prison for murder. And I was, oh wow, I changed my beliefs. I'm sorry. I don't want to go to jail for murder.
Not even really for murder. 3.5 to 7 years. This is But the 2 of their children died. These people should be in jail for the rest of their fucking lives.
And I love that. I love there's that woman who said, these are people who've never been in jail before. And that is kind of like a code word for they're white people. you know what I mean? Yeah. But I mean, at least she followed up with, they deserve to go to jail. But the other woman was like, what the fuck? There are tons of cases where say some middle-aged child lives with her mother and maybe kills her to get her benefits or insurance or whatever. That doesn't hurt anybody else either. She was making the argument. It doesn't like she's not a danger to society. Well, somebody like that who kills their mom to get the insurance money isn't a danger to society either. That doesn't the murder is still illegal. I mean, you still have to go to jail for that. I mean,
I have a kind of different perspective on this couple. I think that they might actually go down in history as kind of evolutionary heroes for removing their awful genes from the pool of humanity. And that's I think they should be applauded at least for that.
Oh God.
Wow. Well, then six more to go if we're going by that.
So you're a bisexual eugenicist then.
Dude, if you don't put that on a business card, I'm going to call it. That's great.
Yeah, when I made The Aristocrats, I went out and got business cards when we were going up to Sundance to try and sell the movie, and all it said was Emery, yeah, I made the fucking thing.
I never really realized how much I relied on my parents to do the right thing by me. Like when I would fall and scrape a knee, I expected my mom to kiss my boo-boos, but then I expected her also to put some antiseptic on it and treat it. And not just, mumble a couple of words over it. When you're that young and that vulnerable, you're hoping that the supposed grown-ups in your life are not going to let you die
right
in their care.
Right. And I think, the kids are not at fault here. They're the victims of their parents' idiocy. They don't deserve to die, because their parents are morons, It's pretty.
I think Emery was doing a little thing called a joke there, Sean.
No, I know. No, I know.
I know.
No, I know it's a joke.
No, did you
I think it's okay to kill kids. I want to be really clear. Let me go on record. Yeah, it's a joke.
But although they had 11 kids, so maybe if they're in prison they won't make any more. So I would agree with that. Yeah, they won't make any more kids.
I take it back if that, I guess that means that nine of their progeny are out there polluting the gene pool. So fuck them. I think we need to find someone who's really committed to helping society. They're just lazy.
Let me ask you guys a question, because the judge seemed to be very, very clear that it was this couple that murdered their kids, not their beliefs, not their church. And they've been in this church, from what I understand, this is the third generation. I'm not sure I completely agree. Yes, they did the act, but I think there's some culpability there with that frame of mind and what they're teaching. It shouldn't. Now, the judge may not have the authority to do anything about that, but shouldn't somebody be taking a deeper look at that?
You're absolutely right, Leanne, because that mindset also goes to this, that the pastor of this church said that the reason those kids died is because the parents didn't believe in their religion enough.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
And actually, we've followed this story for a while. These people have appeared in Arrested Developments previously, and their pastor actually defended their actions in a previous court appearance.
It's the same relief valve that's built into the snake handling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you get bit by a snake and you survive, then you have faith. If you get bit by a snake and you don't survive, as recently happened to the most famous of them, and you die on the 9th bite, then clearly something, according to those who remain behind, something must have been going on with his faith, rather than the obvious, he only had 9 lives. So it's an escape valve that's built into all religious beliefs.
Yeah.
It's an out clause. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we did a story last week about the guy from the reality show who got killed by a rattlesnake. Naturally, he's fucking handling snakes. Big surprise, he gets killed by a fucking snake bite.
Yeah, hilarious. It was the best one we had in a while.
yeah, I know. That's true. It was good. Yeah, it's fodder for some good joke.
See, we don't mind laughing about death, just as long as the right people die.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, we have a little trivia section to the show, too. It's the last 5 minutes of the show if you want to hang out for it.
I can hang out for it. Leanne, you in?
Of course.
Cool. I'm only hanging as long as Leanne is, because I am not up for a fucking sausage fest.
I'll be honest with you, neither am I.
I hate to tell you, Leanne, you're in one.
I know. Says, yeah, I'm not up for a sausage fest, says the avowed bisexual.
Well, maybe he's not that committed.
Yeah.
Well, I also don't think it's okay to kill kids. I do humor, boys.
Oddly enough, I am up for a sausage fest, and I do think it's good to kill kids. So who knows?
You
Anyway,
just
let's move on to the quiz.
They never thought the fact that they're going to burn one day in hell, go to hell without Jesus Christ.
Okay, the first question. Richard Nixon was the second Quaker president. Who was the first? A, Herbert Hoover, B, Franklin Pierce, C, James Buchanan, or D, Ulysses S. Grant? Who was the second Quaker president? I'm sorry, who was the first Quaker president?
First Quaker president. Oh, name them again?
Sure. Richard Nixon was the first. Second. I've been drinking. Richard Nixon was the second Quaker president. Who was the first? Was it A, Herbert Hoover, B, Franklin Pierce, C, James Buchanan, or D, Ulysses S. Grant?
I'm going to go with Pierce.
I'm going to Franklin Pierce, okay.
Yeah.
Leanne?
I really have no idea, so Franklin Pierce, why not?
Yeah, go with the white man. It's always a good idea.
Well, it worked for a few years, so...
Could work again.
Emery?
The first Quaker president. Now, I'm surprised that the four options that you're offering don't include the Quaker Oats guy. I thought he was actually our first president, so I'm a little confused by the question, but I believe it was Hoover.
And you would be correct. Very good.
Oh my God!
Nice.
It's like now that somebody else said Hoover, I immediately it was Hoover.
See, go with the white guy.
Yeah.
The other white guy.
The other white meat.
That's right.
All right. Second question. Who hosted the first Ramadan celebration in the White House? Was it A, Lyndon Johnson, B, Calvin Coolidge, C, Thomas Jefferson, or D, Barack Obama?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Wow. I'm going to take a wild guess and say, because I think that the Treaty of Tripoli was during Jefferson's administration, where it says like the United States is in no sense a Christian. Well, maybe not. I don't know. That seems like they would bring people over from Tripoli or Libya or whatever to celebrate Ramadan. It seems a little. Maybe I'll go with Johnson. I think it is definitely earlier than Barack Obama.
Coolidge.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, not that. Yeah. That could be it too.
Going for Coolidge, okay. And Emery?
Who were the options?
It is Lyndon Johnson, Calvin Coolidge, Thomas Jefferson, or Barack Obama.
Lyndon Johnson, Calvin Coolidge. I don't think Barack did this at all.
Yeah, I know the secret Muslim stuff. I think would shy him away from doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the first Ramadan celebration.
How do you know? I mean, are you sure it wasn't George Bush?
Well, he's not on the list, so no, it wasn't George Bush.
All right. I'm going to go with B.
You're going to go with B, Calvin Coolidge, just like Leanne. And you were all incorrect. The answer is Thomas Jefferson.
Oh, my God. It was right the first time.
Yeah, you should have stayed with that.
Oh, God. So I guess I was right about the whole Treaty of Tripoli.
Are you guys sure about this? Jefferson.
That's what I read. It was the first Ramadan celebration was Thomas Jefferson.
Okay, cool.
I did the research.
Well, did you read it out of a Texas textbook? Because it could be a little iffy.
Well, no, because like back then, that Treaty of Tripoli was actually kind of an important treaty because it was a way to prevent allow American ships to sail unmolested in the South Mediterranean, which was kind of important back then for trade and stuff like that. So I could totally see Jefferson, going the extra mile and celebrating Ramadan in the White House or whatever. But I mean, they also did in that treaty, they said, like America's in no sense a Christian nation.
Well, hey, listen, Jefferson was a deist. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
And also remember, at the time, it wasn't like Islam wasn't controversial like it is now.
Right.
So no one cared if he had a celebration of Ramadan. No one would. Oh my goodness, what is he doing?
Right. Exactly.
Secret Muslim Thomas Jefferson while he's fucking that black chick. Oh my God.
Yeah. In fact, I think I remember reading this. I think it was actually referred to as Ra Ra Ramadan. A lot of people don't know that little piece of factoid.
Okay. Next question. We're gonna get two more here. What is the name of the first book of the New Testament? Is it A, Luke, B, Matthew, C, John, or D, Genesis?
Wait, the first book of the New Testament?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think it's Luke.
Wait, Luke, Matthew, what?
Oh, wait, there's an order. Yeah, there's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So Matthew.
But no, what was 3 and 4?
It's Luke, Matthew, John, or Genesis.
Okay, seriously?
Well, I mean, the New Testament starts with the story of Jesus.
Right, yeah, so it's not Genesis. See, now I'm confused. I mean, because you're right, there is an order. It's Matthew, but, I've got the phrase Mark and priority stuck in my head. And
yeah, right.
It's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But that could be just because that rolls off the tongue easier, but I think it is the actual order.
I'll wait till everybody's done, and then I'll tell you the answer.
Go ahead, Emery. What's the answer?
Matthew. I've read my Bible.
Okay, so like I said, Matthew.
So you're not Catholic, in other words.
No, I'm not. I'm an atheist.
Yeah, there's the Apocrypha in the Catholic Bible.
Well, let me say that confirm that Emery is indeed correct. That is, Matthew is indeed the first. What is the name of the first book in the New Testament?
Yeah.
But Leon didn't even give her answer though.
Genesis is the Old Testament.
Right.
Well, no, I knew it is a new order, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, but all I said was that for some reason Mark was stuck in my head.
Oh, okay, so you went with Matthew also.
Yeah.
Okay, and the final question. Christianity became the dominant religion of the Roman Empire, replacing him as king of the gods. Who was he? A, Jupiter, B, Odin, C, Zeus, or D, Ra?
Oh, that's easy. God, it's Jupiter.
Leanne?
Aren't they oh, no, they're not the same, are they? Jupiter and Zeus.
Yes, they are. They're Jupiter is the Roman counterpart to Zeus.
So there's either one. Okay,
they're basically the same. It's just they Romanize the gods, the Greek gods.
Right. So wait, Jupiter. Who was in between Jupiter and Zeus?
It's Odin or Ra.
No, it's neither of those. Zeus.
You can go with Zeus. Okay.
They're trying to get you there, I think, with Zeus.
And what are you going to go with, Emery?
Give me the options again.
It's Jupiter, Odin, Zeus, and Ra. Which one was replaced by the Roman Empire?
Oh, shoot. Sorry, yeah. Got you.
To bring in Christianity.
Yeah, no, I know.
Are you sure it's not one? It's not the ShamWow guy. That's not.
Yeah, I am not sure about this one. I want to go with Odin.
You can go with Odin. Okay. And Leanne, I'm sorry, who did you pick?
She picked Zeus.
She picked Zeus. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Why
Sean,
not?
you went with...
In this case, you should go with the white. The first white guy is Jupiter.
Jupiter, yeah.
All right, fine, Jupiter.
And Jupiter is correct. Very good.
Yay! You know, I'm not getting any of these prizes. Who do I talk to?
All right, and that is Arrested Development for this week. And that is our show for this week. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Emery, thank you for being such a wonderful guest.
Oh, thank you for having me. I want to point out that at the beginning of your show, I think you pronounced your show as the best atheist podcast on the planet, or is that what you said?
The world has ever known, yes.
Is what is it?
The world has ever known. The best atheist podcast the world has ever known.
Cool. And so what awards did you guys win?
We won the award of just being goddamn awesome.
We're the legends in our own minds.
You didn't win the 2012 podcast award.
No, we did not.
I was just
Or
curious.
11, or 10, or 9.
You went around then, thank you.
Oh, and wait, one quick question. Like Emery is obviously not your last name. I mean,
I'm glad you cleared that up. That is my name.
That literally is your name, Emery.
Yes,
Emery.
That's
like
absolutely-
on your birth certificate.
On my birth certificate. Well, on my birth certificate, what it says is Emery, and then they typed in for the middle name 2 hyphens, and then last name Emery, and the second. Named after my father, Emery. His name was Emery, and then he named me Emery the second. Then he changed his name to Bob and left me hanging because he's a dick. But that is my real name. It's a family thing, which stops here because I'm not having a boy.
Okay, wait. I'm sorry. Your dad changed his name and could have had any name conceivably in the
Bob.
universe.
Yep.
And he chose Bob.
Yeah, the only way it could be worse is if he had chosen Richard and chose to call himself Dick, which would have been accurate.
You know, there's a thought process there, and I'm not really sure I'm prepared to know what it is.
Yeah, I don't want to know it either. It's awful.
On that note, that's our show for this week. Lady, thank you so much, Leanne. And gentlemen, thank you so much, Mr. Ewald. And we will all be here next week. And Emery won't be, but hopefully Emery will want to come back sometime again because we had a lot of fun having him.
Anytime, I'm available whenever you guys want me.
Oh,
Cool,
great.
man.
Great. Thank you very much for coming on. It's great.
All right, guys. I got to go out and shoot something for a scavenger hunt right now, so I'm going to say goodbye.
All right.
Take
Take
care.
care.
Thanks, Emery.
All right. Take
Bye,
care.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
that's it
you
for me,
guys.
guys. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Good night.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Is that all there is? Is that all there is? Is that all there is?